Hey, Epiphany Tribe. It's your girl, Tiffany. And today with me, I have a Cendrine. She is a trauma informed life consultant and NSI practitioner who helps complex trauma survivors move out of survival mode and into greater safety and wholeness. And as the founder of Pursuing Wholesome Health, she brings together neuroscience, somatics, and faith to support nervous system regulation, emotional healing, and sustainable transformation. So, welcome. I'm super excited to have this conversation because I love somatics and all the neuroscience and all those things. So, yeah, I would just want to start off with a fairly simple question, I feel like. What does it actually look like to live in survival mode, and how do we know if we're even there?
That is a super good question, actually, because it depends on when your survival mode kicked in. Because for some of us,
Mm,
yours truly, we were born into it. So that is the normal. And then, of course, you wouldn't know. So this is a
mhm,
really, really good question. And that's what brought me into the journey of learning about the nervous system, because I just felt like whatever was my default, that was what was normal. But really, if you didn't experience safety and regulation in terms of the nervous system, then you would almost actually feel off if something feels regulated, because it would not feel safe, because your nervous
mhm,
system adapts, like feels whatever's default is what's safe, even if it's not good for you. And so a lot of people actually, when they start shifting into a regulated nervous system, they start like wanting to get away from it, or they don't want to do the regulation because it's like there's a push and pull thing going on. But some
mhm,
of the ways you can tell you're dysregulated, um, like you, there's many terms, like dysregulated or like chronic survival patterns are maybe a little bit more constant, but
mhm,
you can identify it in three ways at least. And that's your thoughts. Like if you have spinning thoughts that just keep going and rehashing the same thing, or they're constantly figuring out what's the worst thing that could happen, or
mm,
trying to get ahead of things, that hypervigilant kind of state of being. Or it could also be like just not having much joy about anything, like just being a little bit
mm,
flat, because you can go both ways. You can be over or under stimulated. So depending on what your nervous system chose to do for survival, you're going to either find yourself a little bit more in the depressed, sad, numb state, or a little
mhm,
bit in, I have to do something all the time. That, like,
mm,
it's what you would call the flight. Like, I'm constantly cleaning and it's like socially admired, you're always achieving things, because being still just doesn't feel safe, because your nervous system learned to go into flight to just be ready and do
mhm,
stuff. Or you could be really angry. You could have a really strong outer critic or inner critic. Like if you have a
mm,
very negative inner voice, or you're kind of blamey, those are all signs that your nervous system is perceiving threat and it's trying its best with what's available to try to keep you
mm.
safe. Because then the prefrontal cortex is completely offline and it's just about survival. And then, like, all the things it just doesn't matter. It's all about, how do I get as safe as possible, as fast as possible?
You explained that so well. Um, I I'm over here going, because I'm like, "Same." It's so I my audience has heard me say something similar to this before, but Um, I have, like, joked, but it's not really a joke, where I used to tell my previous therapist that I just keep creating my own chaos because it's normal.
Yeah,
And I said it as a joke at first, and then I realized, "Wait a minute, no, it's true. You're
that
doing
is
all of
very
these
intuitive.
things."
Yeah.
Yeah, it was wild. I was like, "Oh," but again, it wasn't like, in that moment, I wasn't willing to accept it because
Mhm.
even though I
Yeah.
knew it internally, right, and was voicing that, but I wasn't willing to accept it because to me that became, "Okay, well, now you have to do something about,"
Yeah, I know. I
you
know.
know? Ugh. Like, who wants to grow?
It's hard.
It is.
Can I say a couple more things? Because I just remembered I said three things that you can
Yeah,
identify it by. And realized I only said the thinking, like how you're thinking and behaving, but there's
of
also the
course.
feeling.
Yes.
So you could just be feeling these over overreactive triggers, like, something
Mm.
happens and it might be a number 2 or 3 level trigger or irritation, and you're like feeling the whole, like, it feels like the whole history is being pulled up. So when you feel
Mhm.
that incongruent proportional reaction, that's a good sign that you're in dysregulation. And then, so
Mhm.
that's the feeling, the emotional piece. And then the last one is just physically, like, you might be
Mhm.
really tight all the time. My body is still telling me when I go into, because dissociation was one of my first and strongest survival
Mm.
behaviors. And so sometimes I don't even know I'm dysregulated, but my body will tell me because I'm like, oh, I'm way more
Yeah.
tense than usual. And so that will be a way in. So, like, if you pay attention to all three of those categories, it can help you get more attuned sooner.
Mm. Yeah, and that's so true. And again, I'm just gonna say yes because I can I have become so aware of those different areas as I've been on this healing journey, and we all know that it's never ending, right? But I can sit there and sometimes I'll just be like, wait, what just happened? And
Hmm.
it'll be I will have checked out, right? And then I'll have
Hmm.
to go, okay, wait, hang on, body, what is going on?
Yeah.
What is the feeling? What
Uh-huh.
happened leading up to that? And
Yeah.
I think that this is just it's a good conversation because a lot of us who are single, right? Like we're going through this world without somebody or feeling like we don't have somebody to go to and lean on.
Yep. Yep.
Be an even bigger issue if we are so dysregulated and we don't know how to process through
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I guess the question within that
Mhm.
would be what would you say to a client who's single, and maybe not having that community or good family foundation? How would you help them through that process and what would be the guidance there?
Yeah. So the first thing I want to point out is that the loneliness piece actually plays a huge role in trauma perception or experience because,
Mm,
like, I mean, I know there's that phrase out there that I don't actually like, is where people say it's not what happened to you, it's what you do with it. But I'm like, actually, there's stuff that happens to you that, like, it matters. Like, it's not just how you perceive it. So I want
mhm.
to make sure I'm not minimizing realities that are just not good,
Right.
but when you're going through something traumatic and you don't have anybody to be with you, and I'm talking about being with you in a presence kind of way without trying to fix you or get
Mhm.
you, like, because a lot of people are so uncomfortable with other people's pain that they try to just quickly do these like band-aid statements or whatever.
Yep.
And that's impact the loneliness feeling even more, because then you feel like, yeah, I have these people, but I still feel alone because nobody's really seeing or giving me space. So
Mm.
when you don't have that presence of someone else that can hold space with you in the experience, that is when you can develop complex trauma symptoms or PTSD. Even, like, the difference is that, like, I mean, people disagree on this, but what my common understanding is that PTSD is like a one-time event that triggers you if the sound comes back or whatever happened, and CPTSD is more something that happened over a long period of time repeatedly, and then
Mhm.
you get more of the emotional flashbacks. But it's so similar anyway,
Mhm.
because, like, the key thing being is the more support you have in the traumatic event, the less likely you are to develop trauma symptoms. And
Mhm.
so for someone who is feeling like they don't belong, like they're alone, I would say it's actually astounding how many people feel alone even though they are in families. So that's the first
Mm.
thing I want to say. It's like
Mhm.
loneliness is actually quite the epidemic, regardless of what it appears like on the
Mhm.
outside. And so, of course, we want to go find safe people to start building that tribe. And that's
Mhm.
often much easier said than done. All the compassion to everybody who is trying to figure that out, because it
Mhm.
takes some grit and trial and error and starting over and learning
Mhm.
so much about yourself. And if you can embrace that as a journey of, yeah, I'm just going to be with me in this. So, like, it's
Mhm.
almost like you have this inside person and you have you.
Yeah.
And so you're practicing cultivating communion within yourself and
Mm.
and acknowledging, learning how to connect with your own heart and with your
Mhm.
own experience and not waiting. Because oftentimes, I don't know how many of you can relate to this, but like when I first started learning about attending to my own emotional needs like that, I'm like, yeah,
Mm.
but that doesn't feel the same. It doesn't count. Like you almost discount your own voice. And it took a little bit of practice to really
Mhm.
decide, no, I want my voice to matter to me. I
Mm.
actually want to be my own best ally. And of course, with us who have God, we are never alone. We can include the Trinity in that whole process to help us
Mhm.
love ourselves as we should love others, because we can't really love others very well if we don't even know how to be with ourselves in loneliness. So
Mm.
yeah, I would say definitely, we need community, that's what we're made for, and while we're figuring out how to get it, because people need to actually be wanting to be on the journey of health too, and like you
Mm.
said, not everybody likes the whole growth process, and
Mhm.
so it's actually kinda hard to find people who are willing to go on that journey and make good matches in that sense. So while we're
Mm.
waiting to find them, let's practice being it for ourselves.
Well, that's good.
Mm,
That is really good. I love that. It was making me think of like a few conversations that I've been having recently with just some friends and stuff. And, we're over here. A couple of my friends said, like, as we've been on their our healing journeys, we kind of feel like our pool has gotten less and less and less and less.
yeah.
And that's not a bad thing, but it can also just feel so much more isolating.
Mhm,
But then within that too, there's beauty because we have more quality over
mhm.
quantity.
Yes, I love that you said that.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, but, when I think back and this is, like, no knock against any of the friends that I've ever had at all, because they were a part of my journey for a reason. When I look at my core group of friends right now, I'm like, "Wow." You know?
Mhm,
I'm like, these are the people that current Tiffany needed, you know?
mhm, mhm,
But I had to walk through the things that I walked through with the other people who were, in my life previous to love and appreciate these individuals that God has brought me now,
mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
And I really think that that can kind of, like, be an encouragement for those of us who are single
Mhm.
because, it's like, well, if you look back at ourselves when we were younger, were we really ready for somebody, of the magnitude that we know that God can bring us, And some of us were, obviously, because people are married when they got married young. But at the same time, it's, I think it's just a testament to how God can work in that growth and in that healing and bring you together at the right time, whatever that may be.
Yeah, yeah, and I would not even I mean, we get these perceptions, at least
Mm,
I do. People get married, they have a great like, they just figure it out and they're great, and actually, the behind the scenes is often very different.
yes.
So it may look rosier than we see it from the outside because
Mhm.
just because people find someone doesn't mean that they both because they're still like also needing to be on the healing journey. And
Mhm.
so they're just going to be doing it together or not together and that's going to define how that marriage goes, right?
Right.
So it's like, yeah, depending on what you're bringing into the relationship, there can be more
Mm.
complications, but just finding somebody right off the bat doesn't actually guarantee that it's like, yep, they've done all their like, they've done everything and so they found the right person. Oftentimes, I mean, I'm sure you've heard this where they say like marriage is the highway to holiness.
Mm. Yeah.
And I think like, well, actually life is the highway to holiness because when we're struggling and waiting, there's a refining opportunity there too. And it's really
Mhm.
all about the individuals and whether we decide to say yes to the refining or we get so focused on what's not happening that we don't see what gifts God is putting in the pathway during the
Mhm.
process.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's, like, such a good point too. I mean, I have a ton of friends that were married young, and they're all like, "It's not easy." So, I do wanna say I know that, and I've had to watch a lot of them, like, go through it, right?
Yeah.
And but all that to say, like, the refining is so important, and I think too, like you said, like, some people are gonna do that together, right? But to me, it's like I've been doing that with my friends, not my
Mhm.
husband,
Yes.
you know? And so it's like it's still together, it's just not in the way that I
Mhm.
thought,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
So and I think that that's something that we as singles can kind of miss out on or, like, not correlate that we're still
Yeah.
doing the refining and we're still healing. It's just in a different kind of community.
Yeah. I love that you pointed that out. Yeah.
Yeah. You're welcome. Everybody is listening. That was a Holy Spirit moment. I was just like, "This is good. I'm gonna just flow with this and see where this point ends." But yeah, and I I'm so big on building community, and everybody knows this, but, I'm like, I wish that more people would step out in faith and, take those big steps to build a better, stronger community, and be
Mhm.
willing to, like, take the risk. Um, you know, because I think a lot of us, like you said too, like we'll get so stuck on the like what we don't have,
Yeah.
right? And it's like this whole mentality of, oh, I can't do that because I don't have a spouse. Um, you know, where I'm over here, like I'm traveling everywhere. I have friends all across the country, and and I love it.
Yeah.
But I know that I'm still gonna, Lord willing, be doing that kind of stuff with my husband too.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
but I had to also get to that point of being willing to just go, okay, Tiffany, your husband's not here yet, but are you going to keep living your life in
Yeah.
this little itty bitty box because you want to do all of these things with him? So I just started reaching out and finding people and making connections. I think that it is something that more of us need to do, and maybe this is like part of like getting out of survival mode or getting out of like that level of comfort even though it's not good for us, we think it is, right? But it's not. And
Mhm.
so I don't know, like I don't know if you have anything to like kind of tie into that.
Yeah. I actually do.
Okay, well good, go for it.
Yeah, you're talking about doing something different,
Mm,
and in the nervous system reality, different, even if it's good, is going to be perceived as a little bit scary.
right.
And so it's gonna feel like, yeah, I want to invite all these people over, and then you clam up and never set a date, right?
Hmm.
And and it's not because like, then the inner critic shows up. It's like, I'm just not doing it. Whatever ways that you have in your own internal world, there's
Hmm.
struggles with like, I really want it, and that push and pull. And it's
Yeah.
because when we haven't learned how to resource our nervous system. Because like when you're single and because you're processing a lot of grief when you're single when you don't want to be. You're
Mm,
processing being misunderstood. You're processing having people spiritually bypass your pain. You have all of these things that you're dealing with.
hmm.
So of course your nervous system is going to be dysregulated unless you know how to regulate it.
Hmm.
And we want to not just do it in the moment of crisis. We want to build up what I like to call nervous system hygiene, just like you wash your hands multiple times a day. You want to attend to your nervous system when
Mm.
it's not in crisis so that it's like you're putting money in the bank. And
Oh.
if you're finding yourself struggling doing something you actually want to do, but you notice that push pull pattern, it's actually probably your nervous system saying, I just need a little extra resource, girl. Just give me a little
Mm.
resource. And then you start focusing on meeting that need. And before you know it, your nervous system's like, oh, I think I have capacity for this now. And yeah, it's not
Mm.
overnight because
Right.
neuroplasticity is like repetition, 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 but it's so
Hmm.
worth it because lasting change becomes possible and sustainable when your nervous system is resourced, as opposed to
Mm.
feeling like, I don't know if we have enough to make it, like with all the other things we're juggling, and I don't know how much
Mhm.
we can hold. So that's what I would say towards like people wanting to create community, but it's actually a lot of work and it's hard and it requires vulnerability and
Mm.
it will invite conflict. And a lot of us are probably not wanting to do it because of the conflict it will bring. And how is that going to go? A lot of us haven't been
Mhm.
taught how to
Mhm.
do conflict well. So there's so many reasons why the nervous system might want to put the brakes on things.
Yeah, that is such a good point. Okay, so could you give me, like, some idea of resource, like, what you mean by that? Because I know some people might not get
Yeah.
what you mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I didn't know anything about this when I started. I
Mhm.
didn't even know what it meant to like, how do you know you feel grounded? Literally, when I first heard that word,
Mhm.
like, let's ground, and oh, that felt so grounding. I'm like, what are you talking about? What does that feel like? So I am the first one to be happy to explain this and to give you like permission to take your time discovering it because
Mhm.
it it can be a process if you haven't ever felt it. So the grounding piece, in my experience, is to just kind of connect to the here and now, not be in the
Mm.
past, not be in the future, but just, and so the here and now is what you do with your senses. So you would like everyone who's listening could, for instance, like get your focus on your feet on the ground and just feel what are your feet doing? Wiggle your toes. Just get your focus out of your brain and into your
Mhm.
body and just kind of focus there and then maybe feel what else is touching anything. Like, do you have a backrest? Can you feel the air around you? Is it
Mhm.
cooler? Is it warmer? Feel the texture with your hands of your clothes or of your skin. And then notice what sounds am I hearing? And
Mhm.
then see what your eyes see. Usually try to land on a couple of things that are pretty or give you joy or remind you of something nice. Are there
Mhm.
any smells you're noticing? Any tastes? So you go through the whole five senses to really anchor yourself in the present moment of what's here right now. That
Mhm.
in itself can be resourcing to the nervous system because you're actually coming present and it actually starts doing things in your brain. The more present you
Mhm.
are, the more healthy your brain can become. And the more often you stay
Mhm.
in the presence, the more your brain can actually be engaged rather than being in worlds that aren't actually existing anymore or yet,
Mm.
you know.
Mhm.
So then that's more of the grounding piece of it, but there are because I so there's a lot of ways to regulate. What I discovered through neurosomatic intelligence is that there's a way where your body can give you feedback to whether something is good for your nervous system or not because it's very
Mm.
individual. Instead of like throwing regulation exercises at you like spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, you can actually do an exercise. You can assess first, like what I always do, because my neck is like the most tight in my whole
Mhm.
body. So I use
Mhm.
that for my gauge. And so I
Mm.
turn my head all the way to the right and I see how far can I see. And then all the way to the left, how far can I see? And then I do an exercise. And I could like the audience can go along with me real quick if they want to. It may work, it may not, because your system's different. But
Mm.
this is taking vestibular, which is like the inner ear nervous system input, and
Yeah.
vision. It's taking those two, combining it into an exercise where you just grab a pen or something, focus on the focal, like pick a focal point on the pen, hold it out in front of you, arm's length away, keep your eye on the point, and then just slowly move your head side to side as if you were saying no and
Okay.
keep breathing, keep your shoulders relaxed. And then afterwards, you take a breath and then you reassess and see, can I see farther? And that would give you real tangible examples of, oh, my system liked this, and this helped resource my system a little bit. And there's tons of exercises
Mm.
like this. And I like that because, especially when you have dissociative histories, it's hard sometimes to tell if your body liked it or not. But if you have a range of motion telling you, boy, I can see farther, then you know, okay, we're on the right track. So I
Yeah.
hope that answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, it does. That was good. I'm over here like, okay, because I know a ton of different ones too, but I'm always curious to know what works for other people because
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, things work differently for each of our bodies. And so
Hmm.
it's like God knew what he was doing, you know? Um
Yeah. He
and
does
created
know.
us differently. Oh, he does, definitely does. But yeah, like we're all created differently, and then that makes sense that our bodies would be handling stress and pressure and all those
Hmm.
different things in a different way. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And your history makes a big impact on what works and what doesn't too, including accidents you've had, because that
Mm.
impacts accuracy of nervous system input as well. So there's just so many factors that go into what ends up working and is good for your system and things that you can even rehab so that you don't have this 24 drain of some systems that don't work properly because of an accident or underuse or things like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So my chiropractors are very nervous system based. And
Nice.
yeah, it's awesome. I love it. And so we're working on different like exercises and stuff to actually activate a certain part of my back because it's underused. we had like I had no idea. But as soon as I started doing regular adjustments, I could feel that area of my back like trying to engage. And so the the first time it happened, I was like, what was that?
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's been really cool just be like, okay, Tiffany, you're sitting not great because you can feel that area of your back.
Mhm.
Where before I would have had no idea because it wasn't the muscles and stuff weren't engaging. So
Yeah, you woke up your
now
system a bit. I love that.
yeah, and I'm like, "Oh, so nice." But it's been really cool because, like, I will register now and go, "Okay, you need to sit properly," because I sit at a desk, like, all day.
Yeah.
And yeah, so, that's rough, right? To be able to even in those moments, like, just kinda take a second to regulate
Mhm.
because of the fact that, like, you're sitting for so long.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I won't go off on that tangent, but
Well well, I love that you mentioned the sitting at a desk thing though, because
yeah.
a lot of us do that, right? There's not a lot
Mhm.
of us that don't have a job where you're constantly looking at a screen. And what actually happens in the visual system is so you're always converging your eyes because you're looking at near. And so when you want to regulate and kind of, move your body, also look at something in the distance every once in a
Mm.
while for like 20, 30 seconds, because that makes your eyes diverge. And divergence actually helps your system downregulate into the parasympathetic state because convergence is like that's what you do when you're like focused on the threat, right? So it's like you're
Mhm.
recreating threat just by looking at something near. So if you wanted to kind of work your nervous system a little bit throughout the day, just look out in the distance, something like 20, 30 feet away for a little bit every once in a while to let that threat disactivate or deactivate.
Yeah.
So that's one way that you could implement this into work days.
That's a really good point. I mean, I do that fairly regularly because 'cause I'm a teacher, so, like, I have to look at
Ah,
students, but like, I'll get up and look at the board like, I'll be working on the board, so I guess it's not all day, but there is a lot of sitting that is
mhm,
happening.
mhm,
And so there are times where I'm obviously not looking, like, at my computer or the textbook or whatever, but even in those moments, I will, like, realize, like, "Oh my gosh, my eyes are so tired," and it'll be, like,
mhm,
this check of, like, "Hey, you need to look up."
mhm, mhm,
And, like, look at one of the students that's across the room and talk to them, or, like, whatever,
mhm,
but
mhm.
it's
That's great.
yeah, but it's something that's so simple that we don't always, like, think about.
Yeah, because
Uh,
it's like, don't you think being a teacher, don't you think this should be part of the curriculum?
no, for real. I'm like, "Stop looking at all the things so close to your face." Yeah. Like, luckily, we're not a school that has, like, a ton of electronics available, so that's nice. But
Good.
also, they're very much like here too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I use this word very lightly. I don't actually mean it this way, but I like to torture my student by switching their desk arrangements because it forces them to look at me in a different way, or the board
Mhm.
a different way, or their fellow classmates in a different way. And
Yeah.
it's so funny because it started off as a joke, and then I realized, hold up, this is actually really good for them.
It's really
Not
good for them.
only is it like having to train their eyes in a different way, but it's having them have to be within a certain space of somebody else, whether they like
Yes.
them or not.
Yes. So good. I love that you're
Yeah,
doing that.
I know, and I'm just like, "Hee." It's so it's been a lot of fun to, like, kinda see how they will interact throughout a
Mhm.
day
Mhm.
based on how they come into the room because I changed the desks around,
Yeah. Yeah. It's so
you
fun.
know? And I'm like, "You're learning to adapt, you're welcome."
Yeah, it's really it is. They should be thanking you even though they don't
Mhm.
know what's happening, but you're creating nervous system resilience actually by making small enough safe changes. Like they still all know each other. So
Right.
it's within a manageable space. And that's actually a really great gift to impart to little kids to learn resilience like that.
I know, it's funny because I tell them all the time, I'm like, "One day, you're gonna be like, Miss Kelly was right." And you're gonna wish that you can come and tell me thank you. But, I mean, I say that very humbly, but it's just, because 'cause I've had so many teachers in my life that I'm like, "Man, I wish I could go, like, say thank you to them," because I've
Mhm.
realized, whatever it was in that moment that they were teaching me, it finally sunk in and,
Yeah.
you know so, anyway, but They're they're a fun little group.
How old are they?
I they're 7 well, I actually teach 7th through 12th,
Okay.
but I have 7th and 8th the majority of my work week, and so, they're all at that stage of, like, everything is just utter
Yeah.
insanity and all the changes, and so there's a lot of regulating that needs to happen within me as well because
Yes, I was just gonna say that can't be easy on you either.
no, no, it's not. There are some days where I'm like, "I just need to get up and walk around this room because I
Mhm.
need to change something because we're all going a little bit nuts."
Yeah.
So like that in and of itself, like I realized probably around Christmas, I realized how much I was needing to do that because I wasn't doing other things
Mm.
to help regulate my system.
Mhm.
And so but then obviously, like, when I've noticed too, which this makes sense, but I'm gonna say this to some people because they don't realize this, but when I'm dysregulated, they're dysregulated, you know? And
That is
so
absolutely true. Yeah.
it's this whole, "Okay, like, if you're off, Tiffany, they're gonna feel off too," and,
Mhm.
like, either you're the adult in the room, you know? There are a bunch of 7th and 8th graders who are really just trying to figure out life.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so it's this really interesting, like, intricate dance that we do, I guess is like a good way to say it, because if sometimes they're coming in dysregulated and I like started off the day not so great, right? Then that escalates me and I have to go, okay, wait a
You can
minute, hang
tell.
on. Yeah. And I can tell and I have to do things to help bring everybody back to like a normal state as best I can. But also there are some that like to resist.
Of course.
And I'm like, no, stop it. You don't know what this is doing for you.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, again, I can like probably preach about that for a while, but I won't. They're cute. But yeah. Anyway, how I want to ask you another question. How do we begin to kind of heal in a way that includes both our faith and what is happening in our body? Like if you have any insight into that.
Yeah. First thing I would say is, and this is maybe not everybody's story, but it's been my experience over and over again, is where people just wanna pray it off you. And
Yeah.
and it's like, I don't wanna diminish the power of prayer at all, but I also wanna say there are a lot of places in the Bible where Jesus was with people who were sad or hurting. He didn't just immediately
Mm,
fix it. And we even
mhm.
have verses, like, "Weep with those who weep," and it talks about
Mhm.
God being the father of all compassion. And like, there's so many verses that say, "Come pour out your heart to me," and, like, "Be real with me." So the first thing I would say is, if in your faith journey, you have been taught to always be joyful and always be thankful
Mhm.
and never acknowledge that there's other things present too, and then you're actually not understanding or have not been taught that there's more to God. He actually wants the real you,
Mm.
including he says, "Come to me with all your troubles," as opposed to pretend they're not there and just say thank you all the time, which,
Yeah.
again, gratitude is huge, but also we don't need to go fake it. We can say, "God, I'm really
Mm.
upset about this," or "When are you going to do something about that?" Or "I'm still hurting here." So just my first thing would be just really trust that God actually wants to know, and He
Mm.
doesn't expect you to just declare yourself out of grief and out of pain and trauma,
Mm.
because, like, there's so many psalms where the psalmist is literally lamenting. And
Mhm.
yeah, this is where nervous system regulation comes in, because if you're lamenting without having a boundary within it, you might kind of spiral downward and feel like, I'm
Yeah.
never going to get back out of it. So
Mhm.
definitely value practicing a practice of regulation so that you don't lose yourself in it.
Mm.
That I think that's important, because it's not gonna be helpful if you get so wrapped up in the emotion that
Mhm.
you're gonna spiral into, like, dissociation or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah, going to God on a regular basis, not just when it's really bad, but, like, I would challenge everybody to, like, I know we've probably, I mean, again, this is my upbringing, been drilled
Right.
to, read the Bible every day, do some prayers, but, like, how many are also just spending time with God, are just
Mm.
practicing being in His presence and learning to discern the communion and sharing your heart versus just getting the info. What's this teaching me? How should I apply it? Like that's very cognitive, but God
Mhm.
actually wants that heart piece of you too. And so
Mhm.
if you can go to God with even little, like that's a good way to say it, is like, if you haven't done this before, start with little things. Don't start with your biggest trauma. Go to him with, oh, this person just really didn't, wasn't kind to me yesterday, and process that through with God, and ask him, like, ask him questions about, like, what do you want me to know about this? Or
Mm.
what is this pushing on inside of me? Because sometimes we don't see it because we're too wrapped up in the offense of it, because we have these parts that make the wholeness of us, and different parts will want to protect us. And so one part might be offense, because if we're offended, then we don't have to look at what it triggered, because we don't know how to manage that. But when we go to God and say, what's this pushing on, God? And how would you
Mm.
like me to think about this? Or what do you want to say about that? Then all
Mhm.
of a sudden you're gonna start having these almost like bubbling up thoughts of like, "Oh, I didn't think of that." And you'll know, because
Mhm.
when God speaks to you, it's gonna always be loving and compassionate and kind. It may be
Mhm.
convicting, but it will be so kind that it melts you.
Yeah.
And so don't be afraid to ask God these things, because he is so gentle, and he
Mm.
cares so much about your heart, and he knows that if we stuff things or bypass them, it's actually going to make it harder for us to live in the fullness he has for us. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm not sure if that answers the full of your question. If there's more, just let me know.
Yeah, I feel like that answered it. Yeah, and like that's so true. I personally have had to do like heart checks, and go, "Hey, you're just reading. You're not really spending time." And like having that quality time.
Hmm.
Um, and I think when I am really focused on doing that and having those moments of like, okay, I'm going to set aside however long, right? 20 minutes. Um, and I'm either going to put on worship music or just read the Bible or like whatever. I have never felt more regulated, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. He's the master regulator.
Right. And then I'm like, well, duh, Tiffany, hey, you had a crazy week. Maybe it was because you didn't take the time that you needed,
Yeah.
to just sit in his presence. And
Mm.
I think that is so missed. And that's everybody. That's all of us. It doesn't matter
Yes.
how old we are, how long we've been
Hmm.
in the faith. It's just an ever present thing, you
Yes,
know.
absolutely.
We like
Hmm.
to get busy and forget, But anyway, I think I have like one more question. It might be, well, I mean, I don't know. It might not be a doozy, but we'll see. Yeah, I'll just ask it and we'll see. We'll see where it leads you.
Curious now. Come on, bring it.
Okay, well, I feel like 'cause this could open up a lot of like
Mhm.
really good stuff. So yeah. Okay, how does unhealed trauma affect not only how we see ourselves, but how we show up in any relationship?
That is a very, very big question.
Yeah.
I think maybe the best way to answer this is maybe to give a little bit of a personal example, because
Yeah.
it makes it more relatable, maybe.
Mm.
So, I have a childhood trauma history. So there's a lot of patterns that have developed, because when you're a little kid, you're very, like, your brain is operating in such a way that when things happen, you basically conclude, I must be the problem. I must have done something wrong.
Mhm.
And then you compensate from there. And as a kid, also, like, one of the main things is you're depending on your caretakers. So
Mhm.
it's not like you can just leave them. So
Right.
you need the connection, because it's like it's that survival, like you actually need that for survival. But like,
Mhm.
if you think of a seesaw sort of, you have connection over here, you need it, but you also have the need for authenticity to be your own self.
Mm.
But when you're a little kid, you're going to prioritize connection, because without that, you're not going to have clothes, food, shelter. And so,
Right.
yeah, maybe authenticity is not so important. We're going to
Right.
sacrifice that. We're going to, what the term, like, self abandon, or like kind of
Mhm.
go into, yeah, I'm just going to please people, do what I think they need, so that I get the things I need, and usually it turns into crumbs. Like usually what you're actually getting is crumbs when really
Mm.
you need, the unconditional love. But what your system is learning is I'm only getting love if I'm a good girl, or if I do this, or if I anticipate and avoid all the things that could trigger the person, so all of
Yeah.
that. That's how I grew up, anticipating everybody else's needs. So I became this person that didn't have needs. I just
Mm.
like, I can get by without it. Like, I was even called low maintenance um, because of that.
Yep.
and 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 when you grow up with it, you don't know that that's what it is. Like
Mhm.
you're just thinking, yeah, this is great. I'm so happy I'm low maintenance. That makes it easy to help everybody and be in
Mhm.
ministry and all of the things. And so you carry this for years unless you're smart and start doing or blessed to know where to go for learning to do emotional health stuff. Cause I'm like,
Mhm.
I just didn't stumble on it. I wish I had earlier. But I was just carrying this pattern with me. So I had a very hard time ever saying no to anybody. I had a
Mhm.
very hard time ever saying that doesn't work for me. I was over functioning,
Mhm.
and people loved it because like when you do stuff for everybody else, they're not going to have to do it, right?
Mhm.
But it starts building this resentment,
Mhm.
because you're like starting to like the older you get, the less reserves you have. And the more you realize, when is it ever going to be meeting my needs? Because that's what the little girl's still trying to do, get those needs met that never got
Right.
met, right? You don't know this because all of this is working on the subconscious until you start following those triggers and start realizing, oh, it's connected to that pain of that little girl and the lie
Mm.
she started believing that she has
Mhm.
to make everyone else happy. And
Mhm.
so when you don't heal it, you're going to find yourself eventually blow up or have some kind of reaction or burnout, or like that there can be many ways that your body starts communicating it. For me, for instance, it was like I had so many chronic health issues that started creeping up. It's like my body was saying, stop it already. We can't do
Yeah.
more than this. And I would do I was very much into holistic health, and I was doing all the right things. I was poster child for my naturopath. And yet I was getting mediocre results. And then I finally realized, oh,
Mm.
there's the emotional piece. That's the one thing I
Mm.
haven't really dug into yet because I didn't think it was because I was so dissociated. I didn't think it was a big deal. And then once I
Right.
started peeling away those layers, I started realizing, oh my gosh. And then there's another layer and another
Mhm.
layer. And it's so, God's so kind that He's doing it in layers because it would be overwhelming if it was all at
Yeah.
once.
Yeah.
And now, I'm a lot more authentic because I'm like, yeah, I actually know that's not going to work for me. That's going to stress out my nervous system. And then I'm going to show
Mhm.
up resentful, and then nobody's going to be happy. And that's not even how God wants it anyway. So it changes once you do the work, it changes how you interact with people, and it invites people into doing their own work. Because the whole time I was doing for
Mm.
everybody, they weren't seeing the need to do their own work. So it's like
Mhm.
you're hurting both. You're hurting yourself, you're hurting others, and you
Mm.
don't even know it. So
Mhm.
it's really hard. It's hard to wake up to that. And it's worthwhile to say, yeah, I'm going to look at this and it's going to be good on the other side.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Oh, just a big amen because same. I mean, I won't go into like my whole thing either, but there's so much of that like in my past too. And like I tell people all the time, like my parents, and I know this, they did the best what they could with their circumstances.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Because they had parents too. And so,
Hmm. It's a
you
cycle.
know, it's a cycle. And so, it's like it's now being like on the flip side and being able to have certain conversations with my parents and being like, "Hey, I'm not blaming you, but, like
This hurt.
this kind of sucked."
Yes.
And to just be like, how and it's not even that they apologize. They're like, "Okay." I
Being
mean, cuz
understood. Yeah.
yeah, they didn't like that didn't always happen. This is like way more recent
Yeah.
years. It's been awesome to kind of see like as my siblings and myself are like going on our own journeys, and like really kind of trying to do some healing and all of that to be able to go back and be like, okay, well, we're going to mend these relationships with each other as best we can. And then relationships with our parents, because like we don't want our children to have these issues, you know?
Amen. Yes.
Yeah, and it's just like and it's great because, like, my sister and my brother have kids, and then myself and my our other brother do not have kids yet. But those kids are getting to see not only how we're trying to model everything, right? But they're reaping the benefits, right? You
Yes.
know? And it's really awesome because my sister has older kids and then my brother's girls are a little bit younger. And so getting to have conversations with my nephew who's in his 20s, and being able to be like, yeah, like I remember when I was younger and like, just kind of processing through things like with him now on the flip side because we're in this process together, but he's like it's really cool to like kind of see how everybody is trying and like is
Yeah.
is doing things. Obviously, we're not perfect and we still drive each other nuts. But you know, we're at least willing to have conversations now where that didn't
Yeah.
always happen.
Yeah, and that's powerful. It's really
Yeah.
meaningful. And I love like what you're modeling is growth. You're
Mhm.
modeling that's what like no matter what was, change is possible and change is
Yes.
good and
Yeah.
growth is actually worthwhile because of like you
Mm.
can look back and you can see the changes that
Mhm.
happened and you realize, yep, that may not have been easy at first, but I'm so glad I started when I did.
Yeah, yep. Personally, I'm like, I'm happy that I started when I did too.
Yeah.
And like it just to like kind of tie that into it was interesting because I went through this whole moment of like, well, I'm trying. And then I had to like process that with God because I'm like, Tiffany, they're not ready yet. It's okay.
Love that. I have so much compassion for that statement because it's like, yep, yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And it's humbling though, right? Because it's like,
Yeah,
okay, well, yeah, you're doing the thing, but they also need to get there too.
yeah, yeah.
You weren't there either. But then again, to like just kind of wrap that up in a very pretty bow. It's nice to be like more on the flip side of that, or I guess more in the middle of it now, where we can sit down at Christmas and have conversations about things from the past and it not blow up,
Yeah, that's huge.
and it's just like, "Oh, okay." And then again, we're not perfect and we
Mhm.
all like to push each other's buttons and all the things,
Yep,
but
yep.
it's still a lot better off than we were
Yeah,
a few years back, so
yeah. That makes me super happy for you and your family because when the whole family goes on the journey, that makes
Mm,
it so much easier.
yep.
And it's beautiful when you can start together seeing the benefits and reaping it and seeing that the kids are also starting off like you're their ceiling, you know,
Mhm.
and and they're or is that how you I'm not sure if I'm using that correct. I sometimes mess up idioms.
It's okay.
Like they're able to start off where you like they can start
Oh,
higher
foundation.
than yeah,
Maybe,
like
yeah.
their starting point isn't like the same. They
Yeah.
starting higher because of what you're providing and the legwork you're putting in that they're benefiting from too.
I really hope and pray that someday in the future when I'm having a conversation with my children, it'll be like, "I loved you so much that I did the work before you were here," And to
Yeah.
be able to try to impart that wisdom to them,
Hmm.
because it's gonna happen, like, we're all gonna have our things, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But to just be able to share that with them and be like, "Look, this is what happened. These were the things. This is what we worked through. So please don't think that I'm not here to work through it with you?"
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
would just give you a little science nerdy nugget that will encourage you too. Is they did studies about how the nervous systems of the parents impact the kids'
Mm,
nervous systems even
mhm.
before they're born. And
Yeah.
so when your nervous system is already more regulated and steady, like when the baseline is already better than before,
Mhm.
it's like when you start investing in that, then your kids are going to have a lower baseline. Like they actually, kids with dysregulated parents, their baseline cortisol levels were higher. So they're
Right.
already starting with this chronic stress level as their default. And so when you're
Mm,
doing your work now, regardless of how many kids you have or not, you're setting them up for success
mhm,
because you're giving them a regulated baseline start, and that will actually it'll not just impact their brain development, it will also
mhm,
impact their emotional, development and like ability to process things easier. It's such a chain reaction, and it's
mm,
just beautiful because when you bring it all back, that's what God had in mind all along. And it's like, why
mm.
are we surprised?
Right.
It's like it makes sense. So let's just do it.
Yes. Well, I'm just gonna end that there. Y'all just do the thing.
Yeah, just go do it.
Just go do it. Just go figure out how you need to be regulated and do the work.
Yeah, it's worth it.
It really is. Well, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And this was a great conversation. And I'm pretty sure my audience is going to love it.
I enjoyed being here too and talking with you about it. Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, Epiphany Tribe. Until next time, see you later.